Welcome to a great AWS Energy Symposium 2024. I'm Jordan Bloom, Editorial Director with Hart Energy. I'm joined by Donald McPhail, Vice President for Products with Uplight. Donald, thank you so much for joining us here. Really appreciate it. Just to get right into it, we're going to be talking about grid modernization and much more. If you could just tell me a little bit about your organization and what you do.
Yeah, so Uplight really exists to help serve the nexus between the grid modernization need that has to happen on both the customer side of energy usage and the grid itself. And so Uplight provides software and services to help customers understand how they use energy, enable them to adopt energy efficiency, electrification type appliances that can help them save energy or shift energy around, and then ultimately bring all that together and orchestrate into virtual power plants through our distributed energy resource management systems for utilities. And so everything we do, we like to think that we shine a light on utilities to enable them to serve these products to their customers because we white label it all to the utilities brands and help make them look better for their customers.
Very good. And can you just elaborate a bit on kind of working with AWS and how everything connects together with these, virtual power plants and so much more?
Yeah, so Uplight is a cloud-first company and solution set. So everything we do is built into the cloud and leverages AWS. And we do that for a number of different reasons. Obviously, AWS enables a lot of innovation to be able to happen, a lot of speed to innovation as well. But really, when we also think about things like virtual power plants, like customer data that we're holding, which is very important, and also just like the cybersecurity of all of that, is that we really need technologies that are able to scale and able to be really resilient, because we're ultimately, helping support keep the lights on and storing very sensitive data as well. So that foundation of building on top of AWS is really critical.
Great. Well, now if you could please get into maybe a specific customer case and talk about what challenges needed to be solved.
Yeah, so I want to talk a bit about a utility we work with up in the Pacific Northwest. So this is a utility that serves about 1.2 million customers. And they have been going through this transition for about a decade, where they have identified they have this need to move to new source of generation because they want to get cleaner. There's state mandates associated with it, but equally they also have a heap of existing generation that's retiring. They started by looking at what's the additional generation we could bring to that area. Then they went and looked at what they could do around the demand side of the equation as well. And in that process, they identified, well, demand side or customer load growth isn't just growing, but there's also a lot of potential in there for flexibility, which is where Uplight came into it. So this utility has gone about building out a virtual power plant as part of this. And so they're very much using the investment they would have made around generation otherwise to incentivize customers to get smart devices that can be orchestrated together to provide this load flexibility. And Uplight is supporting them from the start of like how much potential is there, what is that resource planning piece of it, helping then acquire the customers and these different device types into these programs. And this is for both residential and C&I, and then bringing all that together into a single platform that can monitor the resource, forecast the potential, optimize, dispatch it, and then measure the impact afterwards, and enable that scaling that they have for their goals to get to 100 megawatts by 2025.
How are we seeing that work out so far?
Really good. So the customer acquisition, which is always like the most critical piece of all of this, is well ahead track. So we've actually been able to scale this program and the megawatts much faster than the forecast, but equally hitting up against the caps of what they need to manage for that growth, because they want to grow too fast as well as part of this. The other part is also, I think about, is customer choice within this as well. So customers are bringing a broad ecosystem of different devices and different device types into this program too. So that's really important, because the choice aspect means that there's a broader array of customers that are able to participate, but also brings diversity to that resource that they're able to manage. Obviously, the Uplight software that's in place is established and turnkey out of the box with it as well. So they have access to all of those capabilities that are like this advanced forecasting, those optimizations around how they manage that portfolio, and the measurement and verification afterwards from day one. And it just becomes richer as more resources come onto it as well.
Right. And can you maybe just delve into the weeds a little bit more about how your solutions work in these cases?
Yeah, it's we think in this one we call it a turnkey VPP. So we're not just providing that software; we are providing the services software-enabled services with it as well. So the piece that we start with is forecasting how much potential capacity could be available in this next year, in this next season. And then we really use that to then think about what are the customer segments to go after. So we use the data set we have around customers and their metadata to be able to go and identify what are the customers to target from a propensity and eligibility for these programs. We then work with the utility, all branded in their company brand, to then go out and market to these customers and acquire them into the program. Obviously, we want to maximize that return on marketing, so minimize customer acquisition costs, maximize conversions, to then enroll the most number of customers with the most valuable resources into the program. And then once they're in there, this is really where that software of managing the resource is really critical, but the services that go around it in terms of helping them forecast seasonal capacity that they're going to have available for their own integrated resource planning, as well as helping them with operations around those events, then also providing customer care support and all those sort of things with it as well. So it all pins back to this software element of it with this services wrapper around it, which is why we call that sort of turnkey VPP, because ultimately the utility is buying a megawatt kind of contract.
Very good. And again, just how did this all leverage AWS, and if you want to specify any specific services?
Yeah, sure. So everything that Uplight does actually beyond this program even, and all of our products is built off of, is cloud native. So we're leveraging AWS for everything. And there's really critical pieces that underlie that from a technology strategy. Scalability, security, particularly associated with cyber, but also PII that we're managing, innovation, and the ability that AWS brings both with its ecosystem into it, which we benefit from, but equally also the tools that make it much easier and quicker for developers to test and develop our own data models, our own insight models that we build on top of it. And then finally, our solution is complete because we work with so many different OEMs, so many different ecosystem players. And so the AWS system really gives us the flexibility and the speed to be able to bring all of those other OEMs like hardware manufacturers that have their own, as well as providers that provide data products into it, which, they equally could be all running off AWS as well as part of it.
Right. And what's maybe made you most excited about your journey with AWS to date?
Yeah, we have been through a number of different phases with AWS, coming from Uplight's origination came from the roll-up of some much smaller companies, and so each of those companies had their own experience of working with AWS because of the speed to access, the ease to bring on developers, and then develop products and iterate, and particularly working in an agile development model, we can bring speed, that speed to innovation, that speed to support is really important. Bringing all those companies together, again, AWS has been really critical to that merger strategy of bringing technologies together, sunsetting some, consolidating in others for us. And then as we think ahead to that scalability piece of it, that ultimately is the bit, is we're not planning for just today or yesterday's problem. We're really much thinking about what does this technology stack need to be able to support, thinking out to 2030 because of the critical data we hold around customers, but also the criticality of the grid operations role that we play today and over the next by the rest of the decade. And so AWS from an underlying part of our technology stack is really critical to that because it has the resiliency, the reliability, the affordability even for all of these data points to be able to manage it here in the US as well as globally as well.
Great. We talked about the utility customers, achievements are being on track at least. But can I maybe get you to touch on some of the specific measurements of success?
Yeah, so as I sort of mentioned, that piece around megawatts is ultimately the sort of North Star piece of it. So 100 megawatts by 2025, well and truly on track with that. In fact, have been ahead of all of the forecasts up to this point. The other part is customer involvement in these programs. So customers that are not just registering or signing up with one channel to participate, but multiple device types in it as well. So they might be doing behavioral demand response with the smart thermostat and also bringing their EV in it. And so we look at that around what is the population or percentage of customers that have adopted those technologies outside of the program and how well are they converting into the program. And we see a much greater participation rate than devices in the territory. The other part is I sort of mentioned around customer acquisition costs, and acquisition speed, those pieces come into it as well. We very focused on, because we're managing incentives, because we're managing marketing, how those conversion rates are supporting with it. And then, we're still in the earlier years of this program, but definitely deriving from other areas. We also think about lifetime value, which is how long do customers stay in these programs for? And this is really where both the optimization of the devices plus the customer engagement pieces really matter. And so typically in our other programs, what we've, that have been around for a lot longer, we'll see, moving, other than move out rates, just customer churn in programs less than 2%, which is well above industry norms, well better than industry norms. That's really important because the more that a customer can stay in, the less customers you have to acquire, the more these programs can scale and be dependent upon. And then the last piece is customer satisfaction. So these programs are a net enabler of customer satisfaction for the utilities. We measure things like customer satisfaction as well as NPS. And what we typically see with NPS is we're matching what Amazon Marketplace would be getting, which is one of those sort of gold standard NPS scores, which is also well above the general utility NPS. So these are actually net positives for customer engagement, customer satisfaction with their utility as well.
Sounds good. Yeah, you just mentioned customer satisfaction. What are some of the other utilities customers' benefits?
Yeah. So obviously, the starting reason to do these things is affordability. So this is a more affordable option than building another generator. It's also speed. These can come about very quickly. They can ramp up and down as needed, which compared to zoning approvals and all those sort of things to build a generator is much faster. The other part is that you're providing incentives to end customers that otherwise would have gone to steel and concrete and those sort of things as well. So this not only helps with affordability for the whole population, but the customers that participate, they get rewarded for that. And both this utility plus others have even been having carve-outs where they're specifically also making sure that low-income customers, hard-to-reach customers are part of that as well, so they benefit from it too. And then the final bit is really beyond the program itself. So these technologies are not just, they're not just for the energy aspect of it. That's what we really think about as the load flexibility. But the reality is the reason to get a smart thermostat is not because of the load flexibility. That's just one of the benefits of it, but is I want to be able to have a more energy efficient home. They drive greater energy efficiency and reduce your bill that way. They provide customer benefit and customer comforts around managing their temperature from their phone and on the couch and all those sort of things. So there's a lot of upside that comes with it. And then obviously electric vehicles, which is these programs help drive to, have a carbon and climate change benefit, as well as help reduce costs on avoided gas and all those sort of things. So there's a lot of peripheral benefits that come with it beyond just the program itself.
Great. Well, thank you so much for your insights. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much for joining us at the AWS Energy Symposium 2024. Have a great rest of the day.